Recently, Nikke Goddess of Victory celebrated its 2.5 year anniversary with a major live stream event. For those unfamiliar, Nikke is a post apocalyptic mobile shooter RPG where humanity's last hope are humanoid weapons called Nikkes, battling to reclaim the Earth's surface from mechanical invaders known as Raptures. Gameplay wise, it's a third person cover shooter. You build squads of 5 Nikkes, each with their own unique weapon, burst skills, and combat roles. But what set Nikke apart isn't just the flashy visuals or, let's be honest, the fan service, it's the surprisingly emotional story. The character deaths, abandonment arcs, themes of identity, trauma, and even class division. The fan service isn't all to see, there's a good story underneath, and to be honest, it's the best part of the game. But during the celebration stream, something unexpected happened. When Rappy's English voice actress, Kelly Mills, appeared on screen, the chat exploded. Messages began to flood in asking questions and accusations.
I'm Kaylee Mills. I've been a professional voice actor and singer for 12 years, and if I had to describe my journey with Nikke in one word, it would be transformative. When we first meet Rappy, she comes off as the straight man, a character who's wholly serious and doesn't have a big personality. It was clear that the poster girl for a game with such rich storytelling had to have so much more going on underneath it all. Although she doesn't let her feelings bubble up often at first, she really cares about the commander and her squad mates. Rappy's journey is a long and arduous one. She never had the time or space to explore who she wanted to be. She accepts being a Nikke because she's never had something she wanted to do, and fulfilling a role is the next best thing. Each friendship she has teaches her what it is to live and love and want something. Red Hood acts as both a catalyst and hurdle to Rappy's character. Someone she truly loved and aspired to be, but also an ideal she was confined by. Once Rappy frees herself of the expectations she placed on herself, she's truly able to move forward. Rappy has a hard time sharing her true feelings and focuses mostly on how she can be the most useful to the people around her. She doesn't even consider that the people she cares about may also care about her. In her overspec form, Rappy has accepted what Red Hood passed down to her. She realizes that this doesn't mean she has to be Red Hood, but that she has the freedom to choose who she wants to be. She accepts herself and starts to trust her thoughts and feelings more, which often comes across as clumsy flirting. In her design, there are a few beautiful odes to Red Hood as well as her past squads, and a design that is bolder and with more contrast, showing that she's unafraid to stand out as her true self. It's interesting. I've voiced Rappy for more hours than any other character I've voiced. Each session feels more and more natural. The most challenging would have to be choosing the exact amount that Rappy opens up. This is all new to her, so even though she starts to express herself more, it still takes a lot of courage and it's often awkward. I think there's a perfect balance to be hit. Emotionally, I did cry for real when Red Hood passed in Rappy's arms. It's difficult to find the words to express how grateful I am to all of the commanders playing the game. I hope I can reach the hearts of as many commanders as possible. Thank you for everything.
At first, it seemed like an overreaction. Why all the outrage? Why are people so angry during such a cheerful, unrelated event? The answer, as it turns out, has very little to do with Nikke, and everything to do with Genshin Impact, the voice acting community, and the strike that had fractured the industry in half. To understand what's happening, we have to rewind. In 2023, SAG-AFTRA, the largest labor union for actors and performers, authorized a strike targeting major video game companies. This includes giants like Activision, EA, Take-Two, and Disney. The union's demands were straightforward: fairer compensation, improved safety for motion caption artists, and protection against unregulated AI cloning. At a time when AI tools were becoming powerful enough to replicate a voice with just minutes of training data, this wasn't a hypothetical threat, it was a very real concern. Now, here are where things get complicated.
ウィンドブルーム祭の本番がもうすぐ始まるぞ。早く見に行こうぜ。どう？よかったでしょ？旅人、いらっしゃい。
Genshin Impact, one of the biggest games in the world, wasn't on the list. Neither were its developer MiHoYo nor its global brand HoYoverse. So why did the Genshin English cast go quiet? Because their voiceover work is contracted through Formosa Interactive, a studio that isn't union affiliated. Under SAG-AFTRA's Global Rule 1, members aren't allowed to work on non-union projects unless an exemption is granted, which Formosa didn't have. This created a gray area. Officially, Genshin wasn't being struck. However, union actors couldn't record without risking sanctions or being labeled scabs, a term for someone who undermines a strike by crossing the picket line. Many voice actors chose to step back voluntarily while waiting for an interim agreement that never came. Then came a twist no one expected. In early 2024, SAG-AFTRA announced it had signed a series of deals with AI companies, including controversial firms like Replica Studios, known for building voice cloning tools that many actors viewed as direct threats to their jobs. Under these deals, actors could license their voices to be replicated by AI legally and contractually with union oversight. However, to many members, it felt like a betrayal. After months of anti-AI rhetoric, the union had essentially opened the door to the very thing it said it was fighting against.
I think disappointment is the first word that comes to mind with both announcements, Amber Warnock Estrada, a video game journalist and aspiring voice actor, said. We were all just like, what was the point of the strikes?
Marcus Rothenberg, a full-time voice actor, echoed Warnock Estrada's disappointment. The union didn't consult their members, Rothenberg said. I know people that had never heard anything about this until the deal went through. Unfortunately, these deals have really shaken my faith in the union, Rothenberg said. I think this has kind of changed how a lot of us feel about if we want to become full union members now, or if we want to go the FICOR route.
Meanwhile, MiHoYo, the company behind Genshin Impact, operates out of China, which has already passed strict regulations and limitations on unauthorized AI use. Ironically, a foreign company was now offering stronger AI protections than the American Union. This flipped the narrative. Was the strike truly about protecting actors from extortion, or was it about forcing international companies to unionize on SAG-AFTRA's terms? The waters would get murkier by the day. And then came the breaking point. In 2024, Genshin Impact would release a new patch, and fans immediately realized that Kenichi's voice actor had changed. Originally voiced by John Patino, Kenich would have a completely different tone. Why, you may ask? Because John had chosen not to record, still waiting for some sort of interim deal that never materialized.
If you've been playing the latest 5.5 update in Genshin Impact, and are hearing Kinich speak for the first time in 6 months, it's not my voice. I've been recast. I've been withholding voiceover services during the SAG-AFTRA interactive strike because Hoyo/Cognisphere wouldn't offer AL protections in the form of a SAG interim agreement. They'd kept my character's dialogue silent for months, all the while I had made the difficult decision to continue not going in until an interim agreement was signed, and this ultimately was why I was recast. Now obviously, a recast is not what I wanted. I'd hoped that any progress behind the scenes would be made and I could come back safely, or that if recast auditions went out my colleagues wouldn't read for them. Unfortunately, I was wrong. I absolutely adored playing Kinich. Genshin was my comfort game during the early parts of the pandemic, and it was a dream of mine to book a playable character. At the time, I didn't have an agent, didn't live in LA, or had any connections that would get me close, but 4 years later, I did it. And the messages I've received from you all saying how much my performance as Kinich meant to you made my heart swell. I would and can return if Hoyo invites me back and signs an interim. I stand by my choices regardless of the outcome. Also, the strike is still ongoing. Please don't believe disinformation on the internet. My best wishes to the cast and the production team. Thank you for everything.
In his absence, MiHoYo recasted the role with Jacob Takanashi, a Tokyo-based voice actor. Jacob wasn't part of any union, he didn't live in the US, and as far as anyone could tell, He took the role in good faith, just another working actor doing his best.
Role announcement. I'm honored to join the English cast of Genshin Impact as the voice of Kinich. Taking up the mantle of Melippo is a privilege, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to carry the flame from the previous flame bearer, John, who did an incredible job. Those are big shoes to fill, and I promise to give it my all out of respect for him, for Hoyoverse, and for you, the fans. Thank you to Diana for their amazing direction and for helping me navigate the intricacies of this incredible game, and to Side Tokyo and Hoyoverse for the honor of bringing Kinich to life. I'm deeply grateful for the privilege of entertaining you all.
But instead of solidarity, Jacob faced a tidal wave of online harassment, not just from random fans, but from fellow voice actors. Stephanie Shea accused him of replacing a striking peer. Karina, the voice of Paimon, said it wasn't a passing of the torch, and Kaylee Mills, the voice of both Rappi in Nikke and Kaching in Genshin, called his casting diabolical. It was brutal and unjust. Jacob was never part of this conflict. He wasn't union, he didn't violate any strike, and he almost certainly had no way of knowing about the internal politics of SAG-AFTRA.
Right. I spoke to the new VA, who lives and works in Japan, and he didn't even know what was going on. He came into an onslaught of criticism and didn't know anything about the strike or SAG since SAG isn't in Japan. Blows my mind.
To make matters worse, some of the same actors who were criticizing Jacob were quietly continuing to work on Genshin during the strike. Karina, the voice of Paimon, admitted that she kept recording lines citing financial hardships due to health issues.
No, you're right. I am technically scabbing. I originally have this role, and technically I can still work this role. I am a disabled person, and this is the job that puts food on my table, as I actually record this role year-round. But I didn't take this role from another person who is striking. I had this role, and I am stuck in IT because I have no other way to pay for my medical bills. But yes, technically I am a scab, and you're right. I don't deserve any praise right now. I don't deserve any of it. I deserve to be told off, just like this actor. So please do, no one should look up to me. I'm trapped and a coward because I continue this job, because if not I end up homeless. I don't say that because I deserve sympathy. I don't. The ones sticking to the picket line deserve all of the praise. Not me. I love voicing Paimon. Love it. I have been through so much that you guys will never truly understand. But I also know what I am, and I should not be given any applause for this. If I could feasibly stick the line with my fellow actors, I would. This job actually barely keeps me alive. But that doesn't mean that it makes it different. It is not a good thing to my fellow actor that I continue to work on this game. I have struggled with that since the strike started. So call me out for this. Please, I deserve it. If it means we get closer to making things better, then so be it.
While many sympathized with her, others pointed out the double standard. If hardship justified working, why attack Jacob, who wasn't even part of the US system? And as more info came to light, a surprising pattern emerged. The reason many union actors were working non-union gigs is possibly due to something called FICOR. What even is FICOR? FICOR, or Financial Core, is a special status. It lets performers resign full union membership while still being able to work union jobs, as well as non-union jobs. They pay reduced fees, losing access to benefits like voting and awards, but in return, they can work more freely across both sides of the fences. As long as they meet certain thresholds, they can even retain healthcare and pension access. In other words, the line between union and non-union wasn't just blurry, it was practically a revolving door. And some actors were walking through it without telling fans. Kaylee Mills, who had earlier called Jacob's casting diabolical, later tweeted a thread explaining the double standards more directly.
SAG winning the strike means that their contracts will all have AI protections going forward. It doesn't make every game union. Also, I've worked on several union games with international talent. A game-going union does not bar that talent from working. Technically, no union actor should work non-union at all. But we do. All the time. It's always been that way in VO. It's not necessarily fine, but it is still very different from taking an existing role from someone who vacated that role withholding work for AI protections. That's why you don't see anyone calling out any of the actors announcing their new non-union roles. It's because while as much solidarity as possible helps the cause, no one really expects everyone to be perfect allies.
She also responded to one fan by saying,
"Hi, yes, although the game is non-union, many of us are making the union rate."
This painted a very different picture than what fans had been led to believe. That SAG-AFTRA members weren't always bound by the strike. That many were working union rates without official union involvement. In fact, Kaylee's comments hinted at a long-standing unspoken reality in the voiceover industry, that union actors routinely work non-union gigs and the roles are often bent behind the scenes. Of course, this doesn't mean studios never undercut talent, but it also shows that Genshin Impact may not have been the villain of the story. The strike was originally framed around AI protections, but as time goes on, it looks more and more like an effort to expand SAG-AFTRA's reach. And perhaps sensing this growing backlash, Kaylee would later walk back her tone, issuing a public apology.
To be honest, I have been advised against getting further involved in this situation at all, but I feel like this is the right things to do, so here we are. First of all, I realized my criticism of Jacob should never have been public. Although I was far from the first person to make a response, further involving fans was not necessary and only caused more strife. I also apologize for bringing up the public tweet I saw in passing about him purchasing a home. It was wrong of me to use that as an argument that he didn't need this one job to make ends meet. I was frustrated trying to explain a point, and honestly, none of that is any of my business. I don't want it to be, and it didn't matter to the point I was trying to make at all. I did send him a message privately on April 2nd to apologize about getting the public further involved and explain why we were upset. Also that, at least personally, there are no feelings of hatred, or any hopes of ill will personally or professionally. I do not know him, but I thought about what I would do if a friend or close colleague did something I found hurtful to our community, and I would have indeed not responded publicly. I would have confronted them directly. Although I originally had a much longer statement, and I'm interested in clearing up more of the misinformation I see about our refusal of work versus the official SAG strike, etc., I don't want to further involve any specific actor. The overall situation is so much bigger and more nuanced than this, and I hope in the future we can have a better conversation. In the meantime, I'm doing the work behind the scenes to try and support my community the best that I can.
This moment shattered the illusion of unity. The strike wasn't being enforced equally, and solidarity, it seemed, had limits and expectations. Then SAG-AFTRA made a bold move. The union's official account retweeted a post demanding that Hoyoverse negotiate an interim agreement. It sounded reasonable until you read the fine print. Accepting that agreement would have required firing almost the entire non-union English cast, replacing them with union actors. Not just new hires, but veterans who have voiced these characters for years. In other words, it wasn't a call for fairness, it was a strategic power play to expand union influence globally, even at the cost of livelihoods. So, where do things stand now? Ultimately, it became clear that the English VAs striking weren't fully about AI protections. MiHoYo wasn't violating union rules the way it was being portrayed. Jacob Takanashi was unfairly targeted by misinformed outrage. And lastly, some VAs, despite criticizing others, continued working under the system they were striking against. In the end, Jacob Takanashi was never the villain. He stepped into a role, he honored the work before him, and he got caught in the crossfires of an industry war he didn't even know he was a part of. The real problem wasn't Jacob, it was a broken system, fractured by poor communication, hypocrisy, and political posturing disguised as solidarity. So when Kaylee Mills appeared during the Nikke livestream, people remembered not just her performance, but the public condemnation she helped ignite. And they made their feelings loud and clear. This controversy isn't just about one game, one actor, or one strike. It's about a larger question. Who really speaks for the voice actors? And when good intentions clash with messy realities, who gets hurt the most? Thanks for watching. If you found this deep dive helpful, give it a like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more thoughtful breakdowns like this.